Hello and welcome back to the MMA Split podcast. I'm your host Matt, joined as always by host and producer Josh. Here to talk about everything that's happened in the last week or so. Main topics on discussion. UFC Fight Night. We were not overly enthralled with this lineup, but there were some good fights, disappointing situations. Main event, due to unfortunate injury, didn't give us the spectacle that maybe we were hoping for. But plenty to talk about. Yeah. Bryce Mitchell back in the winners column. Marina Rodriguez brutally back in the winners column in devastating fashion.
Yeah, that was something.
A disqualification on the prelims, some close prelim fights, an all-around good main event, and some big fight news has been announced. We'll be discussing it. Like the video, subscribe, comment, all of that jazz. I'm not going to spend too much time reminding you. You all know the drill. With that out of the way, let's delve into this card. Fight night. Mateusz Gamrot versus Fiziev. Classic grappler versus striker matchup. First 7-8 minutes or so of the fight. Was it 7 minutes?
Yeah, about 7 minutes.
7 minutes? Really good fight.
Yeah, fucking great fight. And yeah, kind of technically classic striker versus grappler, but it's a grappler with an all-round game and great athleticism against a striker with great takedown defense and again great athleticism. And it was, as promised, a really good fight until I got cut short.
The first few times I watched it, I thought it was the right leg. It was like the fourth replay where I finally realised it's the knee that goes. It's the leg that's supporting his weight that goes, and it's just so unfortunate, man. We obviously know now it's an ACL tear.
Yeah.
Tough injury to come back from. At least you probably think he's not fighting for another year. And he was looking great. I mean, it was a close fight, but I honestly thought he was doing a good job of staying away from the takedowns. He wasn't getting held down for too long. When he was landing, he was firing some devastating combinations. Hand speed.
Yeah, and it's so satisfying when you hear those combinations land so cleanly. Like, it's a very singular noise, but it was just like doof, 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 every time.
And then using those kicks to make up for his lack of reach when it was outside of boxing range. I mean, it's a win for Gamrot, and you certainly can't say that he looks like, he was in this fight every step of the way. It's not his fault that an injury happens.
It's a 5-round fight, and potentially he only needs one takedown. So it was looking like a great fight.
Ends through injury, as we've seen a lot of main events end in the last 18 months or so.
Well,
been a while since we've had one in a main event.
Yeah, but this wasn't like a kind of a freaky fluke injury. This was, I mean, it's weird. I was actually, I kind of saw his left leg as it happened. I wasn't really overthinking it, but, it kind of reminded me of like seeing like oscillation on bridges, like the reverberation in tense materials, like his left leg when he catches the elbow with the right foot. It's almost like it disturbs the way he was going to follow through and whip back, and his leg just kind of quivers in a weird, unnatural way, and I was like, that did not look great. He goes down, and because they're saying it's like maybe a broken foot, I'm like, probably a broken foot. But as soon as he starts clutching like his left knee, I was like, oh shit, yeah, I did like that. I felt uneasy watching it.
Can I be honest with you?
Yeah.
Fiziev, Muay Thai background, trains in Phuket. If he breaks his foot on that kick, I don't think he goes to the ground.
Yeah, he carries on fighting.
I think he carries on fighting and he swaps stance and he kicks with it, or he kicks with his lead leg.
Yeah.
Like, that's a guy that can take, you know what I mean? You'd have to break 2 bones in his leg, Chris Weidman style, to get that guy to stop standing and trying to kick you. These are just unfortunate, man. And the problem is you never know. Did he aggravate it in training? Was it an issue in camp? Did he fight through? You never know. Was it just got the angle wrong? It twists in a weird way, and
it could just be wear and tear as well. He didn't even know it was like ready to go, and then it goes. It's kind of the way it happens with the knee.
The problem is when you have a very kick-heavy style, There's a lot of stress on the joints.
Yep.
You're training a lot of stress on the joints. There's no gloves, there's no padding, there's no protection for your weaponry like there is with your hands. These things can happen.
And we were talking a little bit about before we started recording. I worry that the chances of him coming back and being the same fighter are reasonably slim. It's going to diminish him somewhat, but his game is built a lot on his footwork and the way that defensively he moves. A lot of it is from his core and his hips, and you have to be well sunk in on your knees for that, and it'll be interesting.
Listen, he's an elite athlete.
He is
100% dedicated.
Lives very clean.
He's 30 years old, which for an MMA athlete is not an old age. They've got great technology now. I think you look at what an ACL injury was for an athlete 10 years ago, 20 years ago. It's not the same situation.
20 years ago, career ender.
10 years ago, you're out for at least a year, maybe 18 months.
Yeah, and again, we were discussing it earlier, but I do feel like his style and having to be that explosive, I worry.
Listen, one of the big issues with leg injuries is how much they affect everything else in terms of your training. You see guys all the time, they break their arm, they do something with the shoulder, they're still running, they're still doing leg stuff, they're still keeping a certain level of fitness. You've got to do a bunch of rehab, you're not training at the same level, then there's a dip, which means that you have to then spend a bunch of time rehabbing and then just getting your fitness back up to close to where you were before. It's obviously debilitating. I think confidence plays a huge factor as well. When you've got a heavy kicking game, you've got to have that belief that you're going to throw those weapons and they're not going to get damaged. And when something like this happens, psychologically it can be a lot harder to throw the same amount of force into it. Time will tell. I'm less worried about that. I'd be more concerned for Fiziev that no matter what the circumstances are, that's now 2 losses in a row.
Yeah.
Which means that you're going to come back from an injury, still probably be ranked, but be far lower down the pecking order, and still probably be fed a killer in a fight back where you might not be 100%, and then all of a sudden you're looking at a record that says 3 losses in a row without context.
I do think that they'll give him a tune-up fight when he comes back.
I hope they do. But
I don't think they'll throw him in straight away. When Dom Cruz came back, he got a good fighter, but again, not not an absolute murderer. And Dom Cruz is that other end of the scale. If you don't rehab smartly, if you don't treat your knee with the appropriate respect, if you just as soon as you think you're healthy, you just start training hard again, and then lose your peak of your career to fucking knee injuries. I worry.
I understand what you're saying. My counterpoint would be I don't think there's any easy fights at 155.
Yep.
Who's not a killer at 155?
It depends, because when you start going a little lower down, especially with some of the fresher guys, stylistically, you can keep it as a tune-up fight, Yeah.
And it's a shame because this is a guy that was touted as being one of the exciting guys that can kind of mix up the title picture a little bit at 155. Can he be the guy that breaks into that kind of that top 5 that's all stayed at the top but circled around each other? And unfortunately what seems to happen is every time one of those guys tries to break into that little group, they lose to a Gaethje, they lose to a Poirier, they lose to an Oliveira.
Lose to a Gaethje that's looking like an absolute motherfucker as well.
This is true.
This is true. It was a good fight. So, it's a big loss to the division for sure. For as long as he's out.
Gamrot moves on though.
Yep.
Gamrot moves on, responding nicely with 2 wins now, I think, on the bounce since losing to Dariush. Jalen Turner.
Yep.
Now,
which I think was another short notice one, wasn't it?
That was short notice, and he broke his hand in that fight.
Yeah.
And now, obviously, he gets this slightly fortunate, but it's still a win on the record against Fiziev. And really, you start looking at him, he can start looking at people like Poirier. Even maybe the loser of Makhachev versus Oliveira too. I mean, that's the kind of mix he's put himself into now.
Yeah, maybe arguably, yeah.
So he's in a great position. Good win for him. Fiziev, hard luck, tough division, tough loss. Shit happens. Let's talk about the co-main event and Mr. Freedom! I don't have a Bible, so I just grabbed a book. But this book is by Sebastian Junger. So, in relation to freedom, it actually maybe has more relevance than the holy text. But that is a conversation for a different day. Bryce Mitchell, Dan Ige. Man, did Bryce Mitchell need this win. You could kind of feel that his confidence shattered a little bit after the Topuria fight. And then the injuries, and then obviously pulling out of the Moslar Evloev fight. And then he gets this guy who's never an easy fight. Like, Dan Ige is hard work, no matter who you are. And he never gets finished. And you're never gonna have an easy day.
And Bryce's face was busted up after the first.
Yeah. And I gotta be honest, man, like, Bryce Mitchell won the fight. But I thought rounds 1 and 2, like, if you want to say that we're scoring on damage, you can make a strong argument that what happened to Bryce Mitchell's eye was more impactful than anything that Bryce Mitchell did. I think the real signifier that kind of, I think maybe says that you give him all 3 rounds. Every single round, the position finished in a way where you didn't really feel like Dan Ige was getting back up.
Yeah, but...
And I feel that needs to count for something. Like, if a round ends and a guy's in a really bad position and you kind of feel like if that bell doesn't go...
Well, yeah, you score it for contributing towards an cumulative... I can't get the word out, so I'm not going to say it. You score for gradually getting your way towards the win, right? Like, being able to, like, take away their desire to fight by scoring damage, by coming close to finishing the fight. Yeah, I think, you finish the round, even if it's not like in a tight submission, just threatening things, it definitely scores.
We'll talk about the crazy stuff with Bryce Mitchell in a second. It's a hard-fought win. He gets the win. I can't help but look at his style and just think there's so many things here that are going to stop you getting past a certain level. Like, the striking just is not there at a high level. The grappling, it's not bad. And when he's got you on the ground, his control, his scrambling, all that stuff is really, really high level. It's elite. But you're not seeing him sub guys once he started fighting ranked fighters. You're not seeing him get the takedowns as easily or as dominantly as you would like. Like, he gets great openings and then it's a real, like, he has to tussle. You kind of feel like he hasn't got the physicality necessarily. And he hasn't got the striking. And unless those things improve, like, he'll beat a Dan Ige through hard work and sheer effort and force of will and commitment to the game plan. But if he tries to do that same thing against a whole bunch of guys above them in the rankings, it doesn't work. I think Mosvar Evloev doesn't lose to Bryce Mitchell with that style. I'd be really surprised to see even somebody like Yair. Like, Yair's takedown defense wasn't great against Volkanovski. But I kind of feel
That's
like...
Volkanovski, though. That's...
I don't think Bryce Mitchell would have the physicality to take him down. We've seen what the Topuria fight looks like. I think Arnold Allen stays on his feet and picks him apart. There's just... I love Thug Nasty, but we're kind of getting past this point where, like, having a jiu-jitsu specialist and that just be your main thing is really enough. Like, if you haven't got 1 or 2 of the other pieces to allow your jiu-jitsu to be a real dominant force, you just kind of feel limited once you get to the real elite of the division.
Look, he can set up his takedowns well, but it needs to be against kind of bang average strikers. And Ige's not bang average, but he's more of like a power puncher and a counter puncher than... or not even a counter punch, just like staying in the pocket and catching you coming in. Kind of a signature move. Like, he can set the shots up well against okay strikers, against good strikers. He's not going to get those entries. Like you say, he doesn't finish those takedowns well. It is very laboured. he can use his length to kind of spear in a little bit sometimes, but I mean, shit, even on the Ultimate Fighter, you look quite fallible. You kind of like go, yeah, you're a young fighter, but he's losing. He did lose a lot of time to injury. He's not developing as quickly as like you would want him to, based on the potential you thought you saw a while ago.
Also, you're not seeing the holes filled in.
Yeah, like Paddy Pimblett, I'm like, that's a guy that could live like around, but probably just outside the top 5 if he continues to put it together. Paddy Pimblett is light years ahead of Bryce Mitchell, as I see it.
I think there's things that Bryce Mitchell does a lot better than Paddy. And I think those things do help has helped Bryce Mitchell get some bigger wins than Paddy's had in the UFC.
I think it's because he saves up most of his crazy for outside the cage.
Yeah, okay, so I'll give you an example. There's no win that Paddy has in the UFC that's as good as Edson Barbosa.
Nope.
Or Dan Ige.
Nope.
Like, these are good fighters. So this is not me saying that Bryce Mitchell is a limited fighter. He's obviously very good. He's beating, the 6 ranks, 8 ranks, whatever it is, number dude in the world. He's beating a guy that was tearing people up at lightweight not that long ago. So,
but both of those are guys that, when they're at their best, it's because they caught someone. Neither of them were, dominant, kind of in their peak. It was more of just a good run here. They were never like undefeated in the UFC for a long ass time. Just they weren't those kind of guys. Like Barbosa was like pretty much 500 against ranked fighters, but stylistically it worked in his favor to some degree. Like on paper, and as the fight panned out, pragmatically in a sense, the same. It was a stylistic thing. It's not like I feel like you're like, he's beating, top 10 guys. I'm like, yeah, technically he's beating top 10 guys.
well, just look at the difference. Let's look at some of these other featherweight contenders. Yair Rodriguez passes the eye test, has won big fights, has been in big fights, does things that nobody else can do. Obviously not a perfect fighter, but you can see the talent there. You can see the potential of greatness. And having that little something that can beat the very best fighters in the world. Ilia Topuria, you look at him and you think, athlete. There isn't an ounce of body fat on you.
Scary.
You are so well-rounded. Crisp boxing, great takedown, and you just feel like a powerful, dominant figure. Arnold Allen, you look at that performances in his win streak and you just think, fight IQ, intelligence, control, defense, well-roundedness, big wins, big wins. Dan Hooker, that's a huge fucking win. Some of the other even less notable wins that are becoming more notable with time as those guys then put together their own good win streaks, like Sadiq Youssef.
Yep.
You just see it with it's a little bit like Casey O'Neill at flyweight. She lost to Jennifer Meyer, but before then she's undefeated. We wanted to include her in this kind of prospects list. But you couldn't help but look at her and just think, oh man, some of this stuff just doesn't work past a certain level. And you just know it's an inevitable situation.
Yeah.
It's like a League One team that's playing great tiki-taka football. And you think everything's going to be going swell. But then you know that they've got like Man City coming up. And it's just like, no, this isn't going to work for what you're
as you step up in competition, if you can't develop at an astronomical rate, you have to learn to adapt. But you do see a lot of fighters like adapt quite well, round out their game in interesting ways. Mackenzie Dern, Big Mac.
But look at
different when she first came to the UFC.
Look at the physical transformation though. Like, look at Bryce Mitchell. And I don't care what you say about body types don't matter and he's got farmer strength. I know the motherfucker's got farmer strength. But you can't tell me that if that guy didn't hire a strength and conditioning coach and a nutritionist and spent 6 months...
Well, he's not going down to 135. So he has to bulk up at 145 because his style screams more physicality.
And it's not that. That was the issue with Topuria. He did not have the physicality.
Yeah.
Let's touch on Dan Ige very quickly. He was forced to have to be part of Bryce Mitchell's post-fight speech, which is Bryce Mitchell is the sweetest guy. Like you hear him, I don't think there is a bad
No
bone
one's
in
saying
that
he's a
guy's
bad
body.
guy. No one's saying he's a bad guy.
But
is he a fucking moron? Different assessment.
listen,
Yeah, he is. It's not rhetorical. He's
the
a
guy
moron.
thinks that Satan has taken the earth. He wanted to pray. He's
I
giving
haven't
some
taken
money
the
to
earth
a
yet,
good
but
cause.
I'm working on it.
He's trying to give money to a good cause. He thinks the cause is man-made. That is his opinion.
Well, I mean, when he's like, I'm going to donate $5,000 to Danny Ige to give out to the community in Hawaii, and Danny Ige's like, and he's like, because I think this was like a man-made thing, and Danny Ige's like, you know, talk about putting people on the spot. You don't give Big Bag of Crazy a microphone. I fucking love the way Bisping dealt with this, by the way. But let's circle back around to that. I interrupted.
No, it's right. I feel quite sorry for Dan Ige having to take a tough loss. And let's be honest, he's had a few of these in the UFC. Like, he's this guy where he's never not in the fight.
Yeah.
He is here. He's going to hit that bell. He's going to give a good account of himself. He's going to turn around some situations that don't look very good. He's going to forge some moments. But at the end of the day, there's literally, you can draw a line of quality that Dan Ige sits at. And anything below that line, he will beat. And if you're too far below that line, he'll knock you out in like 25 seconds.
Yep.
Or he'll score 4 knockdowns again, or 3 knockdowns against you in a fight and make it look like you shouldn't be there. But then you just go a little bit above that line and it's like, I don't know if it's a mental side with him or if it's just that he's a little... It's not even... I don't think he's small in weight. I just think he's small in frame.
You're a good fighter, so you're fighting up at a high level. Same as I said about, like, him and Barbosa, Lomismo, you know, fucking against ranked guys, you're 500 kind of fighter. You get up to a certain level, stylistically, the edge gets a little sharper. It gets tougher to deal with. You're not really upskilling the skill sets where you're weakest in the same way that you would be able to get away with doing when you're young in your career. And it's going to be more effective against lower level competition. And you can effectively bootstrap things with the experience in the fight. You're dealing with things that you are so ignorant to that you can't even really describe what happened as experience. It just sucks. So, you know, they're just those kind of guys. It's, if you could get favourable stylistic matchups, you could realistically put together a run to get a title shot. But you are a somewhat one-dimensional fighter. Both Ige and Barbosa are in different ways.
Well,
Barbosa, a very technical striker. Ige, very aggressive in your face, like nice little like counter shot fighter that will like potentially put your lights out.
I don't know if I put... See, for me, Barbosa is a guy that was really elite at an aspect, but had holes that ultimately get exposed at the high level.
And his peak was during a time where you could... Like, people didn't have the same all-round kind of base level that they do these days. So it was so much easier to survive as a singular technician. You know, you can't... The guys you fight now, the athletes you go up against, they're MMA conditioned athletes. They understand the importance of wrestling. Even if they're coming out from some camp in Europe where you fuck all wrestling, they still have some fucking wrestling. They train this. They appreciate it's an aspect of it. They don't go into an MMA fight thinking, just impose your will, just do your one style, it will succeed. They know that you have to have that well-rounded game. Barbosa, his peak was a different era.
But for me, Dan Ige is that guy where I do think he's got a well-rounded game. I just think that he's not spectacular enough at anything.
Yeah.
That there's always an aspect past a certain level where a guy can find that aspect and just be like, I'll beat you at this. I'm so much better at you at this.
Sitting in the pocket and landing that hooks is one thing. That's his like one super attribute. That's his top trump.
He's a little small.
Everything else.
It's a little small to implement it though.
But that's the beautiful thing though, like if you are that small, like you do find those opportunities to get inside.
Yeah.
If you can do it like right, like he usually does. And the other thing is that like most of the power punches in that division are at a kind of similar frame to him at the top of the tree. Like it's like, you know, Emmett, I guess Volkanovski, probably it actually. Yeah.
Should we move on to the feature fight?
Yeah, we have to talk about it. It's ugly, like.
I'm a big Michelle Waterson-Gomez fan, but unfortunately she came in a rematch, having lost the first fight in a much more competitive fashion to the way that she lost the second fight, because Marina Rodriguez was on a 2-fight losing streak, and that woman was not taking any prisoners here. She was making a statement. Gomez is, I think, just coming off the edge a little bit. Like, sometimes you can see how much somebody... This is the second rematch we've seen that's been within a 2-year span. So about a 2-year gap since the first one. We had the Ryan Spann versus Anthony Smith rematch the other month. Anthony Smith tears through him in the first fight. Second fight gets a questionable win that he squeaks to. You look at this fight, Michelle Waterson, she loses that first fight. She loses it 49-46 on at least one judge's scorecard. But it was a damn side more competitive than this was. I mean, she got ran through.
Did you want to see the fight finished in the first?
No, I kind of respected the fact that she was still willing to fight. And what I don't like to see is... I don't like to see a different standard of referee stoppages apply to women than men. And I think...
Oh, I'm not even thinking about it like that. I'm just straight up like... And again, I would not have. I can definitely see the argument for it. I think the ref did the right thing, but...
Listen, at the end of the
day...
day...
She looked like Misha Tate. Like, Misha Tate was one of those fighters that like could take a fucking one-sided beating and then just weirdly pull it out of the bag. But... You know, like she looked like Misha Tate in there in the first round. The second round, she looked like a fighter that got finished. But fuck.
Marina Rodriguez is a strong, powerful woman, and
with great fucking knees.
Yeah, and she got her in that tie clinch and just destroyed her. I mean, this kind of felt like Rich Franklin versus Anderson Silva the second time. We just locked in that clinch and Franklin couldn't get out of it and just kept getting kneed.
Well, she was so patient with it, and there was one moment in the first where Waterson Gomez goes for a knee, kind of whiffs on it, and then Rodriguez just puts two straight in the breadbasket. Like, nah, that's how you do it. Like she knew that she could be patient in certain situations because of the height and size discrepancy. And also just the technical ability with the knees in the clinch. And when she didn't have to show her like the same level of respect, didn't have to be patient and worry about takedowns or anything like that, she just fucking unloaded.
I also think it helps though. I mean, Waterson Gomez in reality is an atom weight. She's always been quite small for the division. And I think Marina Rodriguez looked at the first fight and probably thought, I can kind of just walk through anything that she's got. Like, apart from the grappling, there's nothing she's going to throw at me that's going to deter me or make me afraid in the stand-up. The only thing I have to do is just watch out for the takedowns. Really easy way is if I've got a grip on her head, I'm controlling her posture and just raining knees in. Makes it really hard for her to do anything else. Dominant performance. It's always sad that you talk about should the fight be finished in the first round. No, but the problem is that when Michelle takes the extra shots and then the fight still gets stopped, it kind of makes it all feel a little worthless. You know what I mean? When the end result doesn't change. But then again, the argument can be...
But like you have to have your ref looking at the situation, not the time. And just is what it is.
I thought it was a good stoppage. Because an argument can be made that if you look at just the finishing sequence in isolation, he has no right to stop the fight when he does. But He stopped it because he'd seen the beating that had been taken before. He felt about stopping it in the first round, and he just goes, "This gets worse for you from here."
And this is part of their job. This is what they're supposed to do.
Yeah.
So we've had situations where you've seen the ref talk to a fighter in between rounds and go, "You have to show me something at the start of the next round, or I am going to like wave it off."
Yeah.
You know.
Well, you see it a lot more in boxing, so it's nice to see it being applied. And you also need to be realistic. Like, once somebody has lost the realistic expectation of victory, they shouldn't be taking too much damage after that point.
Yeah. I mean, in sports, you love the huge comeback. I never saw it coming. I can't believe they managed to pull that off thing. In combat sports, that comes at the expense of very real health concerns. It's done the way it's done for a reason.
Well, there's a fine line, isn't there? Getting that fine line is where the difficulty comes in.
Yeah.
Devastating for Gomez, though. She cried quite profusely at the loss. Marina Rodriguez was very happy. Another person that was happy was Brian Battle. Gets the submission win against AJ Fletcher. Is putting together a nice little win streak now. Really showing that he was worth the Ultimate Fighter's time. One of the better graduates we've seen from there in a while.
Let's be honest though, like way too patient in this fight.
Yeah, a little too.
He lost that first round.
He was getting caught a bit too easy for a guy that has a 10-inch reach disadvantage on him.
Yeah, when he was firing off, I'm not complaining about the kicks. When he was firing off the kicks, looked great. Holding them back, looked great. But you know, he was allowing Fletcher to kind of like come in, tag him. Too many times he got caught defensively. Like, pulling your guard up a little late is not great, but if it's up, it's up. I can give a fuck. Having your feet flying, just getting like caught, like you got frozen when you didn't even feint. You just like getting lazy and sloppy with your footwork. It's not that your guard came up late. It's that your fucking head was there to hit in the first place. Just way too patient and laissez-faire.
Like bad footwork at times.
Yeah, this is one of the few weeks where I actually had the commentary up, and Bisping's like, "Look at how relaxed he looks," and I was just thinking, like, this motherfucker looks like he's half asleep. This is not good. This is bad. Then he gets like dropped, and Bisping's like, "Well, you know," like I'm like, "Yeah, fucking." A little, not a great performance, and I like the energy in the post fight, but I'm like, you can't talk about adversity when you're the one that like brings it on. You know, like you made that a meal.
Before the elbow lands in the first round, there's like 3 or 4 naked right hands. And AJ Fletcher, like, it's not that he doesn't feint. He feints and he closes the distance a little bit, but if you've got a 10-inch reach advantage over somebody, you can't be getting caught with naked right hooks. That's just sloppy.
Well, really, I wasn't saying he didn't feint. I'm just saying that, like, when he catches him clean and Battle's just got that whole, oh!
Yeah.
Nah, man, like, he didn't set that shot up. You just fucking let him have it. Like,
not great footwork. Little flat-footed, little lethargic.
It's like he was kind of like assuming that he was going to back up at some point and that head kick was going to be there. And it's like, don't fall in love with the stupid shit that gets you like cheap wins. Fall in love with the effective shit that gets you hard wins.
He gets the win though.
He gets the he does.
Nice submission.
It was.
And that's the kind of the cool thing with Battle is, listen, the fight he's lost in the UFC, he got completely out-wrestled against a much higher level grappler. But
sorry, this is the fight where he had the leg hooked. And like in the commentary, they're like saying like, oh, you know, like he's gonna maybe try to get to his feet or something. I'm like, I don't think he is. I think he's gonna try and look for that sweep, and because he had that leg hooked, he's able to like then take the back, and it's pretty fucking smooth to be honest. That first round was dog shit though.
Not the.
I'm not saying that because I'm a big fan of the guy and I was a little disappointed.
Listen, he's had some really good wins in the UFC. He's had to battle through an orbital fracture. Still got the win. He's had a couple of pretty good highlight wins, knockouts in the first round.
Yep.
He's got talent. He's a fun guy. He's a good personality. He was very likable in The Ultimate Fighter.
And if that is one of those ugly wins that you just put like in the rear view, fucking fair enough.
He's a little sloppy. And he's not in a division where I think you can get away with being sloppy.
Yeah, if you want to make a fucking title run, you have to be way more dynamic with your game plan.
Yeah.
You have holes, but you're a threat. So be a fucking threat. And be smart about it. Like, there was like, not, there were just like moments where you had that onus on being the offensive threat. Very effective. And I understand it's a cardio drain. But the in-between wasn't smart, stay on the outside, defensive footwork. The in-between was like, let's let this dude back in the fucking fight. I mean, for real, he dropped that first round against a guy that he should not be dropping that first round to in a stand-up fight.
Yeah. Lazy with the hands as well. Like, I understand wanting to keep kick and keep the range, but you got to be able to fight long with all of your weaponry.
Yeah, and if you're not, at least fucking throw some shit up to set up the kicks and just defensively, like, keep your fucking head moving. God damn.
Gets the win, keeps going, good personality. Tell you who made none of the mistakes we've just talked about and still got the win, though. Sir Charles Jourdain.
Oh my god.
He's putting a couple of good wins together now.
This was a nice fight.
This was a good fight. Ricardo Ramos is a dangerous guy. I'm going to be honest.
Yeah.
Like, I thought Ricardo Ramos had the edge going into this. Dangerous on the feet. He can grapple.
It's hard
Charles
to count
Jourdain's hittable.
Jourdain out, and he did put together a nice performance in the previous one. I can't remember who it was now, but
Cron Gracie.
yes, and the way he was like hanging onto the head and giving up that Von Flue choke, it was. You knew he was looking for the sweep or something. Like he wasn't worried about Ramos's like ground game in the same way that you would be if you just looked at this fight on paper. And fair play.
He's got a black belt.
Yeah.
It's not like he's unaccomplished on the ground.
Yeah, but there's black belts and there's black belts.
This is true.
And there's Canadian black belts and there's Brazilian black belts.
This is also true.
And Ricardo Ramos has got a really good ground game. And a good stand-up game. This was a good fight, to be honest.
Doesn't mean you can't make mistakes.
Yep. I enjoyed the grappling exchanges a lot in this fight, and yeah, fair play to Jourdain. It was he must have had it in real fucking tight to get that tap, because that was a quick tap.
Yeah, well, it looks like he was trying to pop the head out. Sometimes that's the worst angle, when they've kind of got the head out and it locks in, and
you feel like it's a desperation push. It's like a 50-50 thing. It's like it's now or never. And,
well, you look at the Grasso one, where sometimes like, if it is sort of, you're right round the bottom of the neck, you can kind of like find a little air pocket or find some room.
Yeah.
Whereas there's so much pressure and there's no real relief. Think about it like, have you ever had your head stuck in between a couple of fences?
I feel like you've got an anecdote.
I don't. Well, just that I've had my head stuck in between two
You
fences.
must have. There's no way.
And it always feels like it's the most amount of pressure when you're trying to squeeze it.
How'd you get your head stuck between two fences?
I wanted to see if I could fit my head in the fence.
I'm not disappointed with the answer, but I would like more detail.
I was like 9 years old. I just wanted to see if I could fit my head through the fence, and I did. And then it turned out it was harder to pull it out than it was to get it in.
How did it end?
Well, I eventually got my head out.
I know that the fences aren't here. I know that, motherfucker.
Well, just eventually, it's like a slow process. It's like, it's like edging a really tough poo out. You just have to kind of like not force it and like edge it out, and then eventually like you find the crease. And
we are technically recording a podcast right now. I thought that might be an anecdote rich with detail.
I wish it was, man. I wish it was.
I assumed you weren't giving me detail out of some level of shame that made me want to find out these details.
It really's not that interesting, man. Just a kid who got his
You
head
thought
stuck
the big
in
twist
fence.
was that I didn't know if you did or didn't get your head out of the fence, despite the fact that you're here right fucking now. Sans fence says fence.
Well, they didn't have to like cut through the fence or anything, which might have been the story. I just pulled my head out the fence eventually. But it wasn't fucking easy. It's like a good half an hour I had my head stuck in the fence. This was in a public park, so it's like, any number of bad things could have happened.
I know it's my fault that this isn't high quality podcasting right now, but I feel no shame over any of this. I'm glad that this moment was committed to YouTube.
Well, don't worry, because you get to make up for your honour now. Because you've seen the prelims and I have not, which means that you need to give an MMA split speed breakdown of the prelims.
Alright, have you got the prelims up anywhere?
I can tell you that the first fight was Dan Argueta versus Miles Johns.
Jesus Christ, this was a good fight. Argetta basically gassed his legs out in the first round with like a standing back take. Eventually does get Johns down, but it can't really get the submission in. Can't get the RNC. But when he gets back to his feet, it's weird. He looked quite laboured getting back up, and I was like, oh shit, his legs are gassed as fuck. This is a cardio guy, to be fair. But just, it took him pretty much 2 rounds to really get his legs back after that. It was just a case that Johns had done the damage, won the fight, was just staying on the outside, and Argetta was just desperate. Like, this was such a good fight. He was just desperate not to lose this fight, just constantly moving forward, constantly eating shots. Again, it was another one of those, like, Fiziev against Gamrot. Like, you were just hearing combinations land clean. Just such a satisfying noise, just like glove on like head, glove on body, just doosh, 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 doosh. Great fight, reasonably competitive fight, despite the fact that you're like very much like, obviously Johns has won this fight. Argetta's in that fight. Very excited to watch Argetta fight again. Miles Johns put on a hell of a performance. Had to really tough it out. Argetta did not give him a lot of time, space, reprieve of any kind. Fun. Alright, next fight.
Tim Means versus Andre Fiallo.
How the fuck did you miss the prelim? The prelims were as good as the main card, which was pretty fucking good despite the freaky injury in the main.
I've had a long few days and did not have as much time as I thought to catch up on the fights and prioritise the main card.
Fair enough. Alright, this was a great fight.
Tim Means gets the KO in the third round.
Yeah, man. It's weird as well because like he won the first round, and then the live odds dropped massively, and obviously it's because Vegas just or the bookies just want to get like more action just coming in on the live odds, but no one thought Fiallo was going to win a points decision. It was always going to be, does he land some like nasty shots early and change the direction of this fight, or does he just straight up knock out Tim Means, which isn't easy to do, but because Tim's style is so offensive and aggressive. This is a guy that stands in the pocket with fucking Mike Perry and lands like a triple jab. He is who he is. It's very hard to land on him, but he will give you openings. Not because he's not good technically as a striker, but because he takes calculated risks, because he's constantly firing off fucking shots. Great fucking fight. He landed a beautiful fucking knee with his back to the fence as Fiallo was coming in on the first. I thought that was going to be the fight. Hell no. He's too fucking tough. Beautiful. I think it was a second round submission.
Third round TKO.
Third round fuck. Ignore what I said. Let's move on to the next fight. My memory is not holding up.
Cody Brundage beats Jacob Malkoon. Cody Brundage beats Jacob Malkoon by disqualification at the end of the first round.
Much shorter fight, much easier to break down. Brundage was looking like the better grappler off the bat. The thing was, I did say, Malkoon's got crazy power. The other thing is, like, he's a much stockier fighter. Once he was down, he was able to kind of snatch a single leg from, like, the down position, like the bottom position. And because he's so powerful, a very good grappler in his own right, and the stockier guy, he was able to kind of just sort of dominate those scrambles. Although he ate a little bit of shit early in the fight, 1 minute in, he's now in a dominant position. He's raining down shots on Cody. He had Cody in a weird position where Cody, as he's trying to fight out of it, offers up the back of his head. And it's almost like once the left profile is no longer available and the head's coming around and he's coming up, the right profile might be open for like an actual punch. But like Malkoon looked like he was kind of caught in two minds about it. Ends up throwing the elbow, hitting him with the forearm in the back of the head. Malkoon later comes out and says, that he, didn't really hit him in the back of the head, hit him in the traps. He was going to go for the elbow. He was trying to land on the left profile, and then Cody's coming up. And yeah, I don't really. If that is true, then Malkoon's not as good a fighter as I thought he was. It looked to me he kind of got caught in two minds, and maybe he's just explaining it poorly. But it was a very clear, clean, obvious foul. It was back of the head. It was stupid. He shit the bed there a little bit. I'm fine with the DQ.
Not enough back of the head strikes get called on in finishing sequences. This is a grievance of mine. The only thing I will say is I'm not the biggest fan. And the problem is I haven't seen this one, but if it's a case of his head was here, he goes to throw the shot, and Cody turns it at the last minute, and that's the reason it connects with the back of the head.
No, it's very much the only way that Cody was going to kind of defend that position and avoid taking more shots. Because before that, he's kind of like locking down his posture, and like once Malkoon's able to really like post up and he knows that elbow's coming down. That's where he goes to like defend, put himself, everything's legally kind of covered, and he can kind of start to work his way back up to his feet. Instead, it looked to me like Malkoon was in two minds about trying to hit the other profile, hit the right profile as the head turns around. He's saying he was still going for the left, which is just dumb as fuck. And doesn't even land the elbow at all. It was pretty much all forearm going. Knowing his traps is pretty obviously on the back of his head. Best case scenario, a good chunk in neck, which I think technically is still a foul shot in the back of the neck, right? I mean, I can't imagine that's legal. Fuck it.
Big win for Brund. I mean, it's a DQ win, but Brundage, short notice fight, gets his show and win purse.
Yep. And I don't fault him for not fighting on. You know, you've come in short notice. You're getting your fucking ass whooped. I know it's early days, it's just the first round, but like where you thought you were going to have some success, really did not go very fucking well for you at all.
No.
Shit. This dumb motherfucker just hit you in the back of the head square. Like,
take the extra 20 grand, bro.
We talked about
the extra 20.
How much we respected Anthony Smith for not taking the DQ with John Jones. This one's 1,000% different.
Control your weapons.
No wonder him being a fucking martyr on this one.
Control your weapons.
Yep, Malkoon shit the bed. Cody Brundage marches on.
Okay, I only want one sentence on these next three fights because we've got big fights and outlets to go on. Usman versus Jake Collier. Mohammed Usman. One sentence.
Fun. I'm not even gonna. I can't even do more than that. I can talk about it or I can't. It was fun. Fuck it.
Mizuki Inoue versus Hannah Goldie.
Underwhelming.
Montserrat Rendon versus Tamiris Vidal.
Oh, it's actually a pretty good fight.
I saw a little bit of this one actually. Yeah. It wasn't bad.
Yeah.
Interesting card.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a dull run until we get to UFC 294. There is no UFC next week, so we're not talking about this weekend, I should say, sorry. So we're not talking about this weekend's card. What we will talk about is fight announcements, because we've got a fight card lined up now for UFC 296. We've got a co-main event for UFC 295 that I'm a big fan of. I think dramatically improves the card. So let's do this chronologically in terms of when these fights are going to happen. Light heavyweight belt is going to be finally reclaimed. Either by Yuri Prochaska or for the first time by Alex Poatan Pereira. That's the fight that needed to happen. It's great to have that back.
Yep.
Makes UFC 295, I think, a lot stronger because you look at it and you think the main event's a legacy fight. I'm excited for it. I want to see Jones versus Stipe. Let's be honest. That might not be a competitive fight. It might not even be an exciting fight. Even if it's a close fight, it might look like two guys that are well past their best.
Yeah. And it might not be the most competitive fight, but let's not forget Stipe hits hard as fuck. I mean, shit, he knocked out Verdum jumping backwards.
He was a younger man when he knocked out Verdum jumping backwards.
Yeah, heavyweights don't really lose that power though.
Well, the point is that this is that co-main event barn burner that no matter how you look at it, the fight could last 10 seconds or 10 minutes or the whole goddamn time. But it's really unlikely that it's going to be anything other than seriously exciting. You've got a wild man that beats to the sound of his own drum, fights completely unorthodox, throws all the rules out on striking, but makes it work for him in his own weird way. And also has a granite chin, which, helps out if you're lacking some fundamentals.
Yeah, and a weird braided top knot thing.
And then you've got Poatan, who fundamentally is awesome. Great technical kickboxer. Devastating power from fundamental places. can do 360 spin kicks without any setup or tell. Flying knees are there.
And
that
we'll
left
do the
hook,
dirty work with the low kicks as well.
low kicks is there. All of it's hard to read, but hittable, and
especially if he's going to go for those low kicks against a guy like Prohaska.
Hurtable. You can drop him. You can hurt him. We haven't seen him be hurt like that at light heavyweight. I will give him that. But I don't think it's just the weight cut. He's still cutting a pretty decent amount of weight to get down to 205. It's not like it's no weight cut versus like a heavyweight cut.
Yeah, what was his cage weight like last time? Like 230?
32. I mean, it's fucking insane, man.
Yeah.
Absolutely insane.
That's like what Jason Almeida fights at.
And the thing is, when you're a wild man like Yuri Prochaska, it can be hard for a fundamental guy to fight. Because a fundamental striker is expecting everybody to do the fundamentally correct things. There's a certain script that you're expecting everybody to play by. And a guy like Yuri is not playing by that script. He's going to have weird feints and weird tells and weird setups that are going to be odd to read and hard to follow, and punches are going to come from weird angles.
I mean, shit, that fucking spinning elbow against Reyes.
Sure. And you're also fighting a guy that will throw the risk-reward dice on every single offensive move. Like, usually if somebody's fighting a guy like Pereira, there's a level of respect that I think he would be used to getting, because people know what's dangerous and what you don't want to do.
Yeah.
Yuri's not going to give a flying fuck about that. He'll roll the dice. He'll roll the dice to land his shot, to set up his weird fucking thing. This fight is going to be fucking awesome.
Oh, yes.
Who do you think wins?
I think Prohaska, but I think Poatan's going to be very motivated for this fight, given, the Glover connection.
And the legacy.
And I think, he's going to have a lot of insight into this fight. I think this could be a really fun fight.
There's a lot of factors. The Glover thing I didn't even consider, but that's a huge factor.
Well, I mean, shit, like, your whole training camp is going to be with a guy that really threw the fight away, really could look like he had Prohaska beat.
Poatan hasn't got those skills, though.
No, but he's got a little bit more athleticism on his side. And I think Glover's such a smart, cerebral kind of guy and fighter that he's not going to tell Alex, this is how I beat him. He's going to tell Alex, this is how you beat him.
This is true.
So I think the insight from a guy that pretty much had that dude beat and as smart as he is, and also likes to kind of land those good power shots and find those openings, he's going to have very effective insight for him. In fact, I think the way that Glover would kind of look for those uppercuts and those heavy shots, he really had to get a much better read on the openings and the movement. That if he's kind of got it figured out the way that I assume he would have it figured out, it should theoretically be a little easier for Alex to land shots and get those openings. Obviously, once you're actually in the cage, very different. Like I say, very unorthodox. But Glover kind of had his number till he threw that fight away. And
Glover's got different skills, though. That's the only thing.
Yeah.
This is going to be a stand-up fight, and I just don't know how it goes. All I know is that if I'm Jamal Hill, I'm looking at this going, man, am I glad in the long run that I get to watch how this fight plays out first and take all the notes.
Yeah.
Take all the notes in the world. Every little thing, whoever I fight, this fight's going to be the one where I see as a striker what works, what doesn't, what got through, what didn't, what can I utilise.
That's the thing though, if I'm Poatan, the only other person I would probably want to have helping run and formulate my camp outside of Glover would be King Mo. And that ain't fucking happening. So he's got it just about as perfect as he can have it. The stars don't align any better than they do right fucking now.
Absolutely.
Still picking Prohaska, but I'm just saying I think it's going to be a fun fight.
That's 295. Let's move across to 296 because we have a 296 lineup now. We've got 4 fights.
Yep.
I don't know if more have been announced, but I certainly know of 4 that have been confirmed. We've got a main event, Leon Edwards versus Colby Covington, the fight that needed to happen, even though Colby hasn't had a win against a UFC current rostered fighter in a very long time.
Over 1,800 days.
Over 1,800 days. I'm still okay with this fight. I think it's a good fight for Leon. I think it's a fight that's going to get him a lot of acclaim if he can win it. And Colby's a big mouth. The build-up to this is going to be fun.
Yeah.
It's the end-of-year closer.
I don't love this fight for Leon, but there aren't really any fights that I love for Leon.
I
would sort of take this as the best of a bad bunch as it could be for now.
The pressure's going to be an issue, and I think the biggest issue that Leon can have would be if he gets trigger shy. That's what can't happen.
No, the biggest issue is if he gets taken down.
No, because it's a harmless takedown. You're not getting subbed. You're not getting finished by Colby Covington on the ground. You're getting...
Yeah, I think mentally, if he starts dropping rounds, and if Colby's actually able to start taking him down, I feel that fight might very easily get away from him.
Leon's very strong though, man.
He is?
Very, very strong.
And again, like I said, there's a lot of fights I don't like for him. This is probably the best of a bad bunch. But I'm a little nervy.
All the guys that train with Leon, or have trained with Leon, I've seen him train, all say he murders Colby in this fight. I don't know how much stock you can put on this, but
yeah,
it's a
nice
good
to
fight.
Hear, though. It's nice to hear.
It's a big name, and to be honest, if you win that fight and you're looking at, I've put 2 title defenses together, and the 2 names I beat to get the belt, defend the belt, and defend the belt again are Usman and Colby. You're kind of doing the Oliveira at that point. You know what I mean? You're taking out these guys that sort of went around this merry-go-round for the title before.
That new breed of, questionably, do we have fighters that could have beaten GSP? How good is the welterweight division right now? And you can take out, the cream of the crop.
Who we shall see. He's going to have some help to sell this pay-per-view because we've got Pantoja versus Brandon Royval 2. The first fight was not competitive. I kind of think Pantoja steamrolls him. The guy's so aggressive. He's so fundamental with his top control.
Royval was looking good up until the injury, and then now he's come back. Some of the wins were just kind of vintage Royval, but if he's not sloppy, if he's not as sloppy and messy, it's just potentially, guy scrambles like a motherfucker. He's a threat everywhere. It could be interesting. I just like Royval too much. I hope you're wrong.
Well, we're going to see. We've got 2 more fights on that card. Confirmed, at least there may be more, but 2 that I'm aware of. Paddy Pimblett versus Tony Ferguson. I don't like this fight. I'm not happy about this fight. I don't like what they're doing with this fight. And...
Give me a bit more detail. What don't you like about this fight?
I don't think Paddy deserves it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think they're giving him the one fight against the biggest name possible that he might actually be able to win, and taking advantage of Tony Ferguson's legacy even further. Tony Ferguson does not deserve to be served up to a Paddy Pimblett.
What's a 7-fight skid versus a 6-fight skid?
I know what you're saying, but not to Paddy.
I think it's a winnable fight for T-Fog.
It is a winnable fight for T-Fog. But I don't think he wins it. I just think he's spent, man.
Maybe, but the guys we've seen him look spent against were really fucking good. Now he's fighting Paddy Pimblett. So
this is true. It's a sellable fight. And we're also going to have Wonderboy versus Shavkat Rakhmonov. I mean, that is a striker's delight. And Shavkat Rakhmonov, if you go for a takedown in this fight, you are letting yourself down. You're letting the UFC fans down. You're letting your country down.
There's no way he goes more than 1 round with Wonderboy without being I'm taking this motherfucker down.
At least incorporating it to create the extra.
Well, here's the other thing as well. Honestly, with Wonderboy, you really kind of need to take him down against the cage. So you need to back him up to the cage. So you have to engage. It's just there's no ifs or buts. It's just you're gonna see some fun shit in this fight.
I can see Rachmanov having enough on the feet to beat Wonderboy. He's so fast. He's still got those reaction times because of the age difference. I think Wonderboy could get caught with some things that we don't usually see him get caught with on the feet.
Yeah, I think so. I think if it does stay on the feet, Wonderboy's going to win that fight. I just don't see it staying on the feet.
Final announcement I've seen. This I just saw on Instagram. December 2nd, fight night, headliner, Cannonier versus Roman Dolidze.
Okay.
Can we draw from that? The UFC's probably going with Izzy or...
Oh, yeah. That's, if Dolidze wins, he's one win away from a title shot.
If Cannonier
More likely
wins,
1 win away from a title eliminator. If Cannonier wins, they don't give a fuck.
yeah.
They should give
he
a
will
fuck,
still
but they
be one
won't give a
fight away.
fuck.
So I'm pretty sure that they're either going with Duplessis or Izzy for the rematch.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think probably it's just going to be the timeline, whichever one is willing to sign first. They just want to get Strickland out of there and then do Izzy against Duplessis.
What if Strickland wins a rematch or beats Duplessis?
Very possible. It's what I want to see, but it's not what Dana White wants to see. How will they react to that? I think they're just going to keep offering Strickland fights. I don't think they're even going to have to come after him with a stick or bother to dangle a carrot. They're just going to go, hey, do you want to fight this guy? And Sean will go, yes. And they'll do that 3 times a year until he's not the champion anymore. I don't think it would take a year.
I don't think so either.
But it'd be fucking fun if it did.
Let's enjoy it while it lasts. And on that note, that will be us for this week. We will be back next week.
Yeah, we'll do the preview for the KGD green card.
Heads up, it is not the most exciting of cards, but there are some good fights on it. We'll be back for that, and then we got about a week after that before we really get into the hot streak for the UFC end of year closer. Do not let that deter you though. Still watch us because we can talk about other things like the NFL, but not today because Josh still needs to see his team play.
Yeah, I'm literally going to watch that. So.
My team won by 50 points and scored 70. It's insane.
Very nice.
But Tottenham fucking nicked a draw off us in English football, so...
We shit the bed against Brighton so hard in the second half.
Mixed bags. Guys, thanks for watching. We'll be back next week. Look after yourselves until then. Peace.
Godspeed.